All right, we should be live. Let me pull everything up on my iPad. All right, we're live. We should be all set, ready to rock and roll. Let's go ahead and let's send out a couple of hype messages real quick for the stream. So let's go ahead and copy that. And I'm going to send this over real quick to some people. Hold the microphone and bring it close to over here. All right. So let's get everything adjusted over here. For those of you just joining in, I am sending out a couple of hype messages real quick. Give me a sec. Okay. That should be it, and it's right at 11:30. All right. I think we're ready. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the final election analysis video. We are less than 24 hours away from finding out who is going to be the next president of the United States. It has been a long, tumultuous roller coaster ride of an election cycle, but we have finally made it to the eve of Election Day. I hope you all are well. I hope you all are ready. We're going to talk about the presidential election, maybe touch the Senate, and then just kind of talk about what to expect and what to look at going forward. I'm going to send out one more message real quick before we fully get started. And boom. Okay, so we are done with that. Now let's jump over here. So right back here. Okay, so we got a lot to talk about, and I don't want to take up everybody's evening and all of everybody's evening tonight. So let's go ahead and get started. Starting it off, we're taking a look here at Polymarket, taking a look at the current betting odds for this election. It is a bit down from where it was a week ago when we met, where Trump was kind of hovering at about 63%. That is because over the weekend, Kamala surged in the polls after a poll from the Des Moines Register in Iowa found Kamala Harris leading Iowa by 3 percentage points. And it caught everybody massively off guard because Iowa is very much a safe red state. I mean, you look at the betting odds right now. Trump has an 85% chance of winning the state of Iowa. It hasn't been in play the entire cycle. The polls have had Trump anywhere from like 7 to 12 points ahead in Iowa. And so when that poll dropped, everybody was like, what the frick? What is going on? What does this mean? And so that caused Kamala to surge in the betting markets. And so now the markets are stabilizing again. Trump's up at 58.5. Kamala's at 41.6. That's 4 points up from, I guess, yesterday. But overall, the race is still a dead heat. If we go to the Real Clear Politics, just national polling average, we can go. So the Real Clear Politics national polling average, right now it's a tie. It is a dead heat, folks. 4 of the last 5 polls, or 4 of the last 6 polls have this in a tie. And you can see it's anywhere 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 1, 4. It is a dead heat on the national level. On this day in history, Joe Biden was up by 6.9% in the national vote in 2020, and Hillary Clinton was up by 3.2% in the national popular vote in 2016. Obviously, we can go to my data spreadsheet real quick, the master sheet as I like to call it. Down here, we can see that Hillary Clinton only won the popular vote by 2.10%. Down from 1.10%, and then Joe Biden only won it by 4.5 points instead of 6.9. So if these shifts continue, Trump would win the popular vote by almost 2 percentage points, which would be unprecedented for Donald Trump. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that the trends show that could happen. But let's go ahead and get started, and we're actually going to do this. We are going to pull up the 2024 election poll closings, because we're going to run this kind of like a prediction, or kind of like a simulation of election night. And so we'll talk about each state as they would close in the night, and kind of gauge the prediction from there. Actually what we'll do, we'll just do it like that. So 7 p.m. poll closings, 60 electoral votes: Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Vermont, and Virginia. So we can clearly call Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina for, so Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina would all go for Donald Trump, and then Vermont quite easily would go for, that was New Hampshire actually, Vermont would go for Kamala Harris. These will all be called either immediately when the polls close, or probably 30 minutes, probably within immediately to 30 minutes after the polls close. So Donald Trump will end up with 28 electoral votes and 3 for Kamala Harris. And then the 2 states that will also close, but will be too close to call, will be Virginia and Georgia. 29 electoral votes apiece. Let's talk about Virginia first. Virginia, as of right now, the polling average has Kamala Harris up by 5.9%. That is actually down from on this day in history. Kamala is running about in line with Hillary. Reagan Ballard, Beast, I appreciate you, bro. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the stream, man. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you, bro. 5.9 or 5.33% on this day in 2016 for Hillary Clinton. So Kamala is running about in line where Hillary was. Biden was up by 11, so she's underperforming Biden according to the polling average. All of that gives a 1.6% or about a 0.77% shift, which would have Kamala win by about 5 percentage points. That's roughly kind of where I think it'll be. Polymarket right now has Virginia at 90-11. Kamala will underperform Biden, but will overperform, or will kind of run even or overperform Hillary a little bit. We can look at the early voting trends right now in Virginia. Republicans have been doing just across the board. We can look at this. We can see 77.3 million mail-in and early in-person votes if we can cash nationally. The big thing to look at here is Republicans. 39% of Republicans have voted early, which is unprecedented. Republicans usually don't vote early. They usually will vote on election day itself. And so the fact that Republicans are running even is amazing. And the question does become if that's going to cannibalize the early day vote, basically meaning is the massive increase in Republican early vote going to affect election day turnout for Republicans? That's the question that we're going to have to wait and see tomorrow. But if we go to Virginia's early voting data right now, Republicans have about 38% to Democrats 50%. I want to see, can we compare that to 2020? I probably won't be I don't know if I'll be able to find that. All right, I won't be able to find that, but that early vote turnout is amazing. What you'll probably see in Virginia tomorrow is Trump go up early, and then because the southern part of Virginia will report first, and then the northern Virginia closer to DC will report later. So you'll probably see Trump go up ahead early, and then you'll start to see Kamala start to gain background. I do think that when it all is said and done, there has been a lot of talk about Dustin Bates, who is now in Pennsylvania. Dustin Bates, welcome to the stream. Who's nabbing Pennsylvania? Well, Pastor D, you will have to wait and see. I think Pennsylvania is in either the next or the third poll closing. But Virginia, there's been a lot of talk about Republicans potentially making some ground or gains in Pennsylvania, in Virginia, and potentially stealing Virginia. It's going to be close. I have it as a lean. Kamala will probably win it by anywhere from probably 3 to 5 points. So right within the lean margin. It's going to be a pretty noticeable rightward shift, but it won't be enough probably to flip the state, barring just a massive overperformance from Trump. Reagan Ballard PD in the chat. Yeah, indeed he is. And that's super exciting. I'm super glad you're here, PD. Thanks so much for hanging out. Next, let's go down to Georgia. Georgia is a very important state to look at. It's going to be an early indicator for Donald Trump. Donald Trump needs to win Georgia. For reference, in 2020, it was the closest state in the country. Biden won it by 0.24%, mainly just an influx from Cobb County, DeKalb County, Fulton County, the Atlanta metro area right here. And then in 2016, Trump won it by 5%. So Georgia is going to be very, very, very interesting to watch. And we'll have a good idea probably early in the night who's going to win Georgia. Georgia actually did change their election laws. You're killing it. Great insight and comparisons. I appreciate that, PD. Thank you so much. But Georgia actually did change their election laws. So they have to report all mail-in and early votes by, I believe it's 8 p.m. Eastern. So when the polls close in Georgia, we'll have a good idea of where Trump and Kamala are, and that should give us a good idea of how it's going to look for the rest of the night, because the rest of the night should just be counting the rest of the votes. So if it looks good for Trump, that's a really good sign, but if it looks good for Kamala, that's not fantastic either. That's not fantastic for Trump. Looking at the current polling average for Georgia, we can go in here to right here, actually. Current polling average has Trump up by 1.7. Biden was up by 0.2 on this day in 2020. Trump was up by 4.8 on this date in 2016. So there's a little bit of a polling shift for Trump, roughly looking at my sheet, about a 1 point, or about a, actually right now there's a negative shift. But Trump would still win this, it would say, by 1.6%. But I think kind of with everything that we're looking at early voting in Georgia, Republicans are actually beating Democrats in early voting right now, 48% to 45%. And everything, all the trends, data, everything looks good for Republicans. And again, if we go to the Political Report Demographics Phenometer and we plug in just different variables, here's a couple of the things that I think are going to happen on election day. Trump nationally will make some gains with white non-college educated voters. So here we'll just say it's like 2%, not anything super crazy. And then Kamala will gain a little bit with white college graduates. So let's move this over to the right, just probably by 2 or 3%, especially women. Young single women are a big voting block for Kamala Harris. But then Trump's also the big story of this election. I think is going to be the gains that Trump makes in the minority community, so African American and Hispanic specifically. So let's say that Trump makes just a little bit of gains in the African American community, goes up maybe 2%, and then goes up maybe 1 or 2% in the Hispanic community. Trump wins 49-8 to 48-7. I think all metrics considered, that you have to look at this and you have to say that Trump is probably going to win Georgia. It won't be by a lot. It'll be within 3 points. But Trump will carry the state of Georgia, and it's going to be the first big flip of the night, and it's going to be a great precursor, I think, for Trump as the night goes on. So looking at the next set of poll closings, it's going to be at 7:30. It's going to be North Carolina, which is the big one in this batch of states, Ohio, and West Virginia. So we'll kick it off pretty quick. We'll jump over here. Trump will win West Virginia, and it's 4 electoral votes. And Trump will win Ohio by a likely margin. So anywhere from 7 to 10 points, probably closer to 10, probably almost a safe margin. In 2008 and 2012, Ohio did go for Barack Obama by 4.6 points and 3 points respectively. Before radically flipping to Trump in 2016 and 2020, and he won it by 8 both times. That same thing is going to happen. I mean, we can look at polling in Ohio right now, and it would show that Trump is currently up by about 7 points, so roughly where he's been sitting. And again, Trump consistently overperforms in Ohio. Trump was up by a point in 2016 or in 2020, and up by 2.2 in 2016. So looking at Ohio, it's going to be, barring just a catastrophic collapse, Ohio will be a safe Republican state. That brings us to the state of North Carolina. Looking at the current Real Clear Politics polling average for North Carolina, you're looking at Trump currently up by 1.3%. This is actually the highest that he's been in the polling average on this day in every election he's been in. So in 2020, he was up by 0.2. 2016, he was up by 0.8. So looking at the recent polling, the recent trends do favor Trump. 2 points, 2 points, 1 point. There are reports that Kamala Harris did pull advertising out of North Carolina, bring it back to Virginia because she was worried about Virginia. Looking at Polymarket right now, Polymarket does tell us that Trump has a 68% chance of holding the state of North Carolina. And so looking at all of the available metrics, North Carolina went for Trump by 1.3 in 2020 and by 3.7 in 2016. Trump again is going to, if we go to the demographic swingometer, Trump is will continue to make those gains with white non-college educated voters, so just up by a couple of percentage points. Kamala will make those gains in white college educated voters, and then Trump will make those gains in the African American and Hispanic communities again, which will continue to benefit him across the board. So all of that together puts Trump at 51 to 47.7. I mean, again, I would be shocked if Trump doesn't win North Carolina. He's won it twice. I don't see any reason. The polls have been trending his way the entire time. He'll win it again, probably 1 to 3 percentage points, just kind of roughly, kind of between his 2016 and 2020 margins. So that, through the 7:30 p.m. poll closing, brings us to 81 for Trump Vance, 16 for Harris Walz. And we still got a lot left to go. So if we jump to the next set of poll closings, it's going to be the 8 p.m. poll closings. And this is the biggest batch of poll closings on the night. So it's Alabama, Connecticut, D.C., Delaware, Florida, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Missouri, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Tennessee. So let's go ahead and knock these out. So Trump will win Alabama, Mississippi, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. So let's jump back over here. He'll win Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Missouri. I got to flip back over here. I'm missing one. Mississippi, Missouri, Alabama. He'll win all of those states, and then Connecticut, D.C., Delaware, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Rhode Island will all go to Kamala. So let's go here. So Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Illinois are all going to go for Kamala, rather. Let me just make sure Washington, D.C. as well. This is just a large batch. I want to make sure that I get them all. And then the interesting states to look at are going to be Pennsylvania, New Hampshire. We can't forget Maine. So Maine's going to be interesting. So Maine's first congressional district is going to be straight blue. Maine and Nebraska, remember, are the states that do divide their electoral votes up by congressional district. So Kamala will win Maine 1, Trump will win Maine 2, and Kamala will win Maine's at-large district. And then we have New Hampshire, Florida, and Pennsylvania. Tennessee also goes for Trump in this. Let me just make sure. Yes. Yes. Okay, perfect. So we can talk about these states in the next set of poll closings. Starting with New Hampshire. New Hampshire has trended a little bit more blue. It went for Hillary Clinton by 0.37 in 2016 before going for Joe Biden by 7.4. So a massive, almost 7-point shift to the right. And right now, the Real Clear Politics polling average does have New Hampshire if it'll load, it does have New Hampshire at about 3.5% right now in the polling average. So close to a tilt margin. Kamala would be massively underperforming Joe Biden in the state of New Hampshire. Looking at Polymarket right now, Polymarket does have New Hampshire basically 84-18, so I don't think it'll flip. But if we also look at early voting data in New Hampshire as well, it's 37-33. Republicans are keeping it pretty close. So, I mean, I'm kind of skipping New Hampshire because I don't think it's going to be as important of a state as some folks would like it to be. But I do think that the Harris Walz ticket will carry it by a lean margin, so anywhere from 3 to 7 points. It's going to be a good state for Harris Walz. It'll be too close to call when the polls do close, but they'll end up holding it for sure. Looking at the next state, which is Florida. The state of Florida used to be a bellwether, very important state for all candidates. Barack Obama won Florida both years. He won it by 0.88 in 2012, and then Trump took it by 1.2 before expanding upon that and winning Florida by 3.4%. Looking at the Real Clear Politics polling average right now for Florida, we can see that right now Donald Trump is up by 8 points, the highest he's ever polled in Florida. And the highest any Republican has polled in Florida in a while. If we look at Polymarket, Trump right now, 93% chance of carrying the state of Florida. Currently, early voting, Republicans are walloping Democrats in the early vote, 44% to 33%. Again, the thing we don't know is if that's going to affect the in-person vote, but I don't think that it will. Probably Trump has this really good ability to bring out low propensity voters who are really bad at being polled. So I do think that we might be looking at another Trump underestimation in the polls. But coming back to Florida, Trump will probably win this by a likely margin. So that's anywhere from 7 to 10 points. So Trump gains, but what used to be the two big bellwethers of Florida and Ohio to his column, and we are through the 8 o'clock poll closings. At the 8:30 poll closing, the next state to close is Arkansas, and its 6 electoral votes will go to Donald Trump, bringing him up to 161 electoral votes. Oh, we didn't talk about Pennsylvania. Let's go back. Pennsylvania is probably the most important state in PD. If you're still in the chat, you asked about Pennsylvania. So let's talk about Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania is probably the most important state and the state that this entire election is going to come down to. So Pennsylvania in 20 has gone Democrat, had gone Democrat all the way. The last time it went Republican was 1988 before going Democrat to 2016. In 2016, Trump won it by 0.72%. And then in 2020, Biden won it by 1.2%. Looking at my spreadsheet, though, we can see that Trump has been underestimated in Florida in 2016 by 2.8% and 1.4% respectively, so about a 2.10% shifted average. Right now, in the Real Clear Politics polling average for the state of Pennsylvania, we can see that Trump is actually ahead by 0.4%. So him being up by 0.4% in a state that he usually does get underestimated in is a really good sign for Trump. Right now, looking at Polymarket, the betting odds do have Trump basically 60-40 of carrying the state of Pennsylvania. And there's actually been some news out that the early vote for Democrats in Pennsylvania has not been good. I'll see if I can find the tweet. But there is something came out that basically said strong Dems only squeaked out 2,411 net votes in the mail-in vote today. So their blue wall that they have to hold for mail-in votes is not there. At least that's what it's looking like. And if you look at early voting trends for Pennsylvania, right now it's 56-33. So I mean, obviously Democrats do vote early compared to Republicans in more numbers. However, Republicans will massively turn out on election day, and if the margin for Democrats is not there, then that's not going to be good. Looking at the demographic swingometer, again, this has been my favorite tool to look at when it does come to election analysis. So Trump will make some pretty substantial gains among the white working class, white non-college educated, especially the union vote. That vote, I mean, the Teamsters Union didn't endorse Biden. A lot of their individual ones did endorse Kamala, but you'll see that a lot of the college educated will break for Trump. Kamala will make some gains in the white non-college educated, but Trump will gain some in minority vote, especially in the suburbs of Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. And he'll make some gains among the Hispanics, even despite the Puerto Rico joke. But that'll have Trump win 49-9 to 48-3. I do think that the state of Pennsylvania, it will narrowly flip for Trump, and it very well may be the state that does seal the deal for President Trump. As of right now, Trump is running the table, which he's needing to do. He's flipping back all of the 2020 states that he lost, that he won in 2016. And right now, Pennsylvania, we may not know till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. But I will be staying up all night tomorrow night if I have to. This is my Super Bowl, so I am very excited for this. Anyway, we're jumping to the next set of poll closings, and this is 163 electoral votes on the line in this 9 p.m. poll closing. A large swath of states, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, all states that are going to be very important to watch. Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Minnesota. I'm actually going to pop this up and move this over to the side. So you won't be able to see this, but I will, just so I can see the different states that are closing. So Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Colorado. So let's go back to our electoral map and pull this up. So this is always the part that takes a second. So Arizona will be too close to call, as will Wisconsin and Michigan. And then Colorado, Iowa, Kansas. So Kansas will for sure be for Trump. Despite what people are telling you, despite what that Iowa poll comes out and says, Trump's going to win Iowa by close to double digits. It'll be a likely margin. We're going to skim over Iowa. And then the other one that I read after Iowa was Colorado. Colorado is going to be a likely Dem state. It's the most leftward trending state in the country. And so it is not, it used to be a battleground, but it's not really a battle. It's kind of like the Florida for the Democrats. It's like Florida for the Democrats. After Colorado, Louisiana, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, New York. So New York will go Democratic. Louisiana will go Republican. Nebraska, like Maine, breaks up their electoral votes by congressional district. So Nebraska 3, and Nebraska 2, and Nebraska at large will go for Trump. Nebraska 2, which is Lincoln, the main city in Nebraska, that's going to go by probably a lean margin for Kamala. The Nebraska State Assembly did try to change it to where all of their votes went to the candidate that won the state. That could have actually really changed the map if that had gone through, but it did not, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Minnesota is also in this group, as is New Mexico and Texas. And then New Mexico, New York, North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas, and then North and South Dakota and Wyoming. So Trump basically has crossed from north to south from the Canadian border to the Gulf of Mexico with this. He's at 213, so he is creeping close to 270 electoral votes. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are only at 33%, or at 133 electoral votes. I'll start off by talking about Texas. Texas with its 40 electoral votes. Democrats were kind of hoping for a Blexit this year. Trump won it by 5.6 in 2020 and by 9 in 2016. Interesting to point out, Trump actually did overperform in Texas. The final polling average had it about 1.3. Trump shifted it by 4.5. Polling average in 2016 actually had it by 11.7. There was actually a shift towards the Democrats, but still a shifted average of about a tenth of a point. And the current polling average, if we go to the Real Clear Politics polling average for the state of Texas, Trump is currently up by 7.6%. That'll probably hold in some capacity. Trump will make some big rural gains. Current early voting in Texas. I've already voted here in Texas. I hope you have as well. 50 to 37 Republicans are knocking it out of the park when it comes to early voting. Trump will carry the state of Texas and its 40 electoral votes by a likely margin. I'm not worried about Texas. You shouldn't be worried about Texas either. I will say, if you have not voted yet in the election, please go vote. You do not have anything to be mad about if you go and you vote. Right to the left of Texas is New Mexico. I'm intentionally talking about New Mexico next. In 2016, it went for Hillary Clinton by 8.2% before going for Joe Biden by 10.8%. Current polling in New Mexico, we can look at my spreadsheet. Current average is about 6.7% for Biden, but New Mexico shifted to the left in 2016 from the polling and shifted to the right. So actually just a little bit of a rightward shift in polling. It's about a lean D. Looking at early voting statistics right now, Democrats up 47-37. There have been some whispers about potentially, I think Trump did do a rally in New Mexico, but it ultimately probably won't be enough. Harris will win New Mexico probably by a lean margin. Again, she'll kind of hop somewhere in the middle of Hillary and Joe Biden's performance, but it'll be still a safe Democratic state. Now we get into some more of the important Rust Belt states. So Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and then Arizona down here. So let's talk about Arizona first. So Arizona, a reliably Republican state. The last time it went Democratic was actually in 1996 for Bill Clinton. And then it has gone Republican since then, except for 2020. In 2020, it went for Joe Biden by 0.31, the second closest margin in the 2020 election. And went for Trump by 3.5 in 2016. Current polling in the state of Arizona does have Donald Trump up by 2.6%. This is higher than he was in 2016, or higher than he was in 2020, and a little lower than he was in 2016. Biden actually was up by 0.9 in 2020. Early voting right now tells us Republicans are mopping the floor with Democrats right now, 42 to 33%. The county to watch in the state of Arizona is going to be Maricopa County. So Maricopa County, this county went for Trump in 2016 and went for Biden in 2020. It is Phoenix, the Phoenix Metro. It is going to be the state to watch in the state of Arizona, 1,000%. Polymarket right now has Arizona at a 77% chance of Trump holding the state, of flipping the state back. He would need Arizona as well. Winning Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, he doesn't need Arizona or Nevada to win the election, assuming all the other states that are historically Republican hold for him. But Arizona would definitely be a nice addition as well. But going to the demographic swingometer, and if we hold my earlier predictions, Trump makes gains in the white non-college educated vote in Arizona. Kamala makes some gains in the white college educated. I would lean that a little bit more just because of the nature of Arizona. It's got a little bit more moderate Republicans. Trump makes some gains in the African American vote, especially in the Phoenix Metro, and then makes a pretty good gain with Hispanics. Would actually flip him Maricopa. He would win 55 to 47.8. I do think that all of this being said does give Trump the edge. Again, if Trump wins a lot of these states, I'm being a little bit conservative in saying that he does win them by lean margins or tilt margins, so anywhere from 0.1% to 3%. But he does win these states, and so that brings Trump up to 264. Spoiler alert, once we factor Utah, Idaho, and Montana, which will all go for Trump, Trump wins all of these states, he's the president. That's the reality of the situation at hand. So going up to Minnesota next, the state of Minnesota, it's 10 electoral votes. It's a historically Democratic state. Even fun history lesson for you. When Ronald Reagan won in 1980 and 1984, it is the only state that outside of Washington D.C. that did not vote for Reagan. You can see in 1980 it went for Jimmy Carter by 3.9, and in 1984 it went for Jimmy Carter or Walter Mondale by 0.18. So it's a very liberal state. It went for Hillary Clinton by 1.5% in 2016 before going for Joe Biden by 7.1 in 2020. Current polling in the state of Minnesota. Reagan ballot. I'm a Ronald Reagan fan. Me too, man. Ronald Reagan was a great president. Even though, as J.D. Vance did point out, there were some policies that he did that were not amazing. But as a whole, Ronald Reagan is one of the greatest presidents of all time. Current polling average in Minnesota has Kamala up by 4.2%, a 3-point decrease from Biden's margin. Tim Walz, her vice presidential running mate, is the governor of Minnesota, so you can hope that would be a bit of a boost to the ticket. Early voting right now in Minnesota does show Democrats with 42% of the early vote, with Republicans at 21%. I think we could potentially look at closer to a Hillary Clinton margin. So probably closer to 3 points, high end tilt, low grade lean for Minnesota, but those 10 electoral votes, it's one of the, if any state's going to flip to Trump that he hasn't won before, it would probably be Minnesota. Or I would love for it to be Virginia, but I don't think there's enough in Virginia to have that happen. Moving on to Wisconsin. Now, what's interesting about Wisconsin and Michigan, I'm going to do these together, is that the Rust Belt Trio usually votes together. It historically does vote together. So in 2020, they all went for Biden. In 2016, they all went for Trump. In 2008 and 2012, they all went for Obama. They all went against George W. Bush. The last time that they split was 1988. George H.W. Bush won Michigan and Pennsylvania, but did not win Wisconsin. So historical data trends would tell us that the Rust Belt Trio will again vote together. Current polling averages out of Minnesota and Wisconsin Wisconsin is Harris up 0.4 and Michigan up Harris up 0.6. Looking at the current trends in Michigan, Hillary Clinton was up 3.6, so a 3.9% shift. Joe Biden was up 5.10, ended up winning it by 2.8 only, so a 2.3 shift. So about a 3.10% shift for Trump. Factor that all together, it gets him about a 2.5% lead in Wisconsin, or in Michigan. In Wisconsin, Hillary Clinton was up by 6.5%. Trump won it by 0.7%, so a 7.2% shift. Same thing here. Biden won it by 6.7, only won it, or led by 6.7, 6-point shift, so about a 6.6% shift in the direction of Donald Trump. All of this together, coupled with the fact that I do think the Rust Belt trio does stay together. In Michigan, Republicans are behind by only 3% in the early vote. In Wisconsin, other is actually leading the pack immensely. But I do think that what we're looking at here is another instance of the Rust Belt trio voting together. It'll be fairly similar across the board, so they'll all probably be by a lean margin. But we're looking at the Rust Belt trio all sticking together, and that actually does put Trump over the top from a electoral college perspective. I will point out, watch the Muslim vote in Michigan, see where that goes. The mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, has endorsed Trump as well as a lot of Muslim leaders in the state of Michigan. So look to see where that goes and where that lands, because that'll be interesting to watch as well. But Wisconsin is also the most conservative of the three Rust Belt trio states. And so you would expect it to vote to the right of both Michigan and Pennsylvania, which might warrant potentially making it a lean. But I'm going to stick with tilt. My gut says tilt. So moving on to the next set of poll closings, the next poll closings on the night after that big swath is going to be Nevada, Montana, and Utah. So Montana and Utah, both super strong Republican states, no issues there. That gives us the state of Nevada, the final battleground state that we will be watching, and the battleground state that will probably take the longest to find out who won. There is a scary scenario where everything comes down to the state of Nevada. It's 6 electoral votes. They have announced actually that it could take up to a week to find out the results in Nevada, which is absolutely absurd. It should not take a week to figure out who won a state. We should not be going backwards in the time it takes for us to count our electoral votes. But the state of Nevada, it is one of those states that Trump has never won. Has always been close, but just hasn't won. Hillary won it by 2.4%. Biden won it by 2.4% as well. The current polling average in Nevada has Trump up by 0.6%. In 2016, he was up by 0.8. In 2020, Biden was up by 0.3. So he's roughly had, from the polling average, about there's actually been a 1.5% shift in the polling average. Current Polymarket betting odds do have Trump a slight favorite, 56-44. Nevada, I want to give to Trump so bad. I'm a bit of a pessimist. Every time I've picked Nevada, it's been wrong. I am going to have it so slightly tilt Harris. That'll probably be the one that I am the least confident about of these three. Maybe Michigan as my other one that I'm not super confident about. This is my final prediction. Do I want to change it? Because it's going to be close regardless. I just don't know if I want to change it. I mean, looking at the trends and data, it would favor Trump, but the most reputable Nevada pollster came out today and said that Harris would win the state barely. I'm going to go for it. Nevada tilts Trump. Nevada will Nevada will probably be one of the closest states in the election, but it will go for Trump in my mind. So we go to the next set of poll closings, and we'll just kind of speed through these because none of these states are really going to matter in the grand scheme of things. Next up is going to be California, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. So California, Oregon, and Washington are all going to be Democratic. That's going to all go for Kamala Harris. And then Idaho will go for Trump. And then the next poll closing, Hawaii, at midnight Eastern time, and then Alaska at 1 a.m. Hawaii will go for Trump, or for Harris. Alaska will go for Trump. So this is the final prediction for the Electoral College. Donald Trump becomes I think the third president, or the second president. I don't remember specifically off the top of my head. I should. Becomes only the second president in history to win 2 non-consecutive terms. He wins back all of the states that he lost in 2020 that he won in 2016, while also getting Nevada. I do think that there is an argument to be made that you could see Minnesota flip and Virginia flip, maybe New Hampshire. But I'm hesitant to pull the trigger on those. So this is the map, 312 to 226. I'm cautiously optimistic. A lot can happen. This race is super tight. The polls have it at dead heat, and I want to say that it's going to end up being a lot tighter than it's or I want to say that it's going to be a bit broader of a margin than the polls show, but we just don't know. But this is what I think it's going to end up being. I'm going to save this map, and we're going to take a look at how my map has changed. So 5 weeks ago, I had it like this. I had Nevada flipping, or staying with I had Nevada staying with Kamala Harris. Had Arizona as a likely margin, and then had Wisconsin as a lean. First week of October, had Texas as a lean for whatever reason. But again, it stayed the same. I think we have relatively stayed the same. 226. I bounced back and forth on Nevada. But what I have stayed consistent on is keeping the Rust Belt trio together. I flipped Nevada back, kept the same thing, and then this is what we're looking at, the final result. In regards to the Senate, we'll talk about the Senate very, very briefly, because we have done a Senate map analysis as well. So 28 to 38, Washington, California, Hawaii, New Mexico, Vermont, Massachusetts. Well, actually, I need to do this. Add yellow. And so Angus King in Maine, Bernie Sanders in Vermont, and then Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, New York as well, Minnesota. On the Republican side, Mississippi, Tennessee, Missouri, Indiana, West Virginia, which will be a flip for Republicans. Jim Justice will win that seat pretty handedly. North Dakota, Wyoming, Utah, Nebraska's main election. So that puts Republicans at 47%, or 47 seats to Democrats 40. You need 50 seats to become senator, or to win a majority in the Senate. So we'll take a look at my spreadsheet real quick. Arizona, Kari Lake, Ruben Gallego. This race has tightened a little bit. I think a lot of these races will come down to how much does the Senate candidate over or underperform Trump. Trump does usually boost down ballot races, but by how much will be the question. I have it set it right now as a lean D and a Democratic flip. I think Kari Lake is going to underperform Trump, and I think that it will be a Democratic flip. That's kind of the general consensus of everyone. So that's not me being an outlier. Next, we'll look at Virginia. Same deal. Tim Kaine taking on Hung Cao. Right now, it's pretty safely going to be Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine's going to hold. I'll have it by a likely margin. I think if Trump overperforms in Virginia, that could be good for Tim Kaine. But Tim Kaine will hold the state of Virginia. In Florida, Rick Scott's going to hold by a likely margin. If Trump's winning by 7 to 10, Rick Scott will run pretty close to him. And it's going to be right now anywhere from 4.6 to 4.7%. I think Rick Scott's going to overperform that. And then in Texas, Ted Cruz will also win by a likely margin. I am not scared of Colin Allred at all. I don't think that it's going to be remotely close. Right now, Ted may underperform Trump a little bit, but right now in the polling, he's up by about 4 points, and he's going to win probably by 5. I don't think Ted Cruz is going to lose. Up in Montana, that's a likely as well. That's another flip for Republicans. Jon Tester will not be beating. Tim Sheehy, and he will lose. Sheehy will become the new Republican senator, and then Don Osborne is not winning the Nebraska special, which puts Republicans at 51%. In the 51 seats in the Senate, would give Republicans the advantage. And now looking up at the same states we were just talking about, but now for Senate control, Catherine Cortez Masto will win probably by a lean margin. Again, depends on how much Trump does perform by, but Catherine Cortez Masto, Jackie Rosen will probably hold the Nevada Senate seat. Looking over in the Rust Belt, looking at current polling in Ohio, incumbent Sherrod Brown is in trouble. This race was pretty wide open, but right now Bernie Moreno is leading by a point. It's trending Republican. And Trump, again, if he's winning by 10 points in Ohio, regardless of how much of a juggernaut Sherrod Brown is in Ohio, I'm having this tilt Republican. It's going to be a Republican flip by how much remains to be seen. Michigan is an open seat. The incumbent Senator Debbie Stabenow is retiring, and so it is right now Elise Stefanik versus Mike Rogers. Right now it's about 2 to 3% in favor of Slotkin. I do think even if Trump does win Michigan, Slotkin will hold the seat. And then Wisconsin, incumbent Senator Tammy Baldwin taking on Eric Hovde. This is another race kind of like Ohio. This one has right now Jackie Rosen is up. But this is a seat that has been massively trending Republican over the last little bit. And I do think by a very close margin, also considering that Wisconsin is the most conservative of the Rust Belt trio, my kind of bullish prediction is that Eric Hovde does knock off Tammy Baldwin, and it's another Republican flip. And then Pennsylvania, this is probably going to be the tightest. This is the one that I am not 100% certain on. It is Bob Casey, the incumbent, taking on Dave McCormick, who's been running a phenomenal campaign. This race has tightened up as well. I have it right now as tilt Democratic. I'm going to keep it that because if I'm not sure, I lean pessimistic. But this Pennsylvania could really go either way. I could have it. It could go on a good night for Trump. If Trump performs well in Pennsylvania, that's his. But I'm staying a little pessimistic and saying that he doesn't hold it. And so that is our Senate map. And then I do have Republicans holding the House as well, but I'm not going to go into a full House analysis. But that does it for the final election analysis stream of the 2024 cycle. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for hanging out these last few weeks. I appreciate all of you. Regardless of what happens, God is still on the throne. Jesus is Lord. And we are going to be in for a very, very interesting election cycle tomorrow. Election night tomorrow. Have a great night, guys. Make sure you